It was all so unfair. Despite being bedecked like some barbaric princeling, Sindo's external wealth did nothing to protect him from the internal sense of destitution he felt. His star had risen swiftly under the direct patronage of Ilithian and the indirect favor of El Uriak. He had already gained control of a squadron of sleek corsairs betrayed at Ashkari Talon and a palatitial manseat to dwell in nearby. He had warriors at his command that knelt before him and called him Dracon. He had the choice of slaves taken from a million worlds to do with as he would. Now he could explore every fantasy and indulge every hidden vice in a society that did not judge nor even care how its members behaved. The Archon's rewards had been everything promised, and for Sindio, a relative newcomer to the concept of ownership and property, quite dizzying. Nonetheless, he had felt himself slowly coming to an uncomfortable revelation about the Dark Kin. It was the kind of thought that once it had formed, simply wouldn't go away. In their own way, the Eldar of Commorragh were just as stunted and narrow as the Eldar of the Craftworld, or for that matter, the Exodites. They were also denying a part of themselves in their bid for immortality, trying to turn a blind eye to their psychic nature in the hopes of cheating she who thirsts. He was secretly starting to wonder if the demon goddess had allowed some of the Eldar race to escape simply to enjoy their self-imposed suffering as they eternally twisted and turned trying to evade her claws. Now he had wandered inside an area that was being actively patrolled with no adequate explanation for what he was doing here. Destiny had left him with no choice but to sneak in further, if only to look for another way out. It always happened like this. Sindo had never thought of himself as a renegade. Indeed, he felt he had labored long and hard to try and find purpose in his life. He had come to believe that his being birthed on a Craftworld was a matter of mischance, and concluded that he had never really been intended for such a hard, narrow life until some hiccup in destiny had cast him into it. He had rebelled often and joyously against the strictures of seers and moralizing dogma of his companions, conceiving it as his adoptive destiny to mix things up a little. The few pranks he had played and the lessons he had attempted to teach to his moribund fellow travelers on the Craftworld had done little to endear him to them, or vice versa. Slowly but surely he had been expelled into the chilly outer darkness of social seclusion, there to watch others undertake their meaningless journeys along different paths. Gardener, sculptor, entertainer, philosopher, artisan, warrior, on and on. It appeared to him that their aim was a lifetime of well-rounded mediocrity, and he despised them for it. He had briefly flirted with the warrior path, but found it to be most tiresomely restrictive and ritualized of them all. Everything on the warrior path seemed focused on how to stop being a warrior, how to deny that part of the psyche that lusted for violence. When he was offered the opportunity to leave his beautiful prison and escape into the wider universe, he'd jump at a chance. Even now, he remembered the wary shrug the seer had given when Sindo asked him what would happen if he chose not to go. For the most part, the great and wonderful universe had proved to be nothing but mud and squalor warring with ignorance and stubbornness. His supposedly disaffected ranger companions proved to be merely tourists with a taste for the outdoors and a fondness for meddling in the affairs of others. None of them had the slightest intention of questioning their way of life or attempting to forge their own path. They were simply bored and disaffected, so they took the prescribed Craftworld path of life that was labeled for the bored and the disaffected. Sindo had wanted more out of life than that. Well, he certainly found it now, and damned his immortal soul into the bargain. Listening to the seers prattle about the perils of the warp and the spirit self was one thing. Entering the demon-haunted ruins of Shadum had been quite another. He found he now believed in the existence of his immortal soul as he had never done before. The nagging idea that he could still do something to recover himself had stayed with him ever since. He thought himself committed to the dark path, that he'd finally spat in the face of the universe once and for all and sworn himself to win power by any means. Now that he had it, he found that the power he'd sought was meaningless. He could feel the first tendrils of the empty hunger of the Commorragh kindling inside him, and he did not like it one bit. He He was starting to understand the unremitting fury of the Dark City and its need to consume everything that it touched. If they stopped for even a moment, the yawning void that was constantly at their heels would engulf them all. Now that an eternal life of parasitism and exploitation was laid out before him, he found the idea repellent.